Yo, happy holidays, everyone. You can see I got my festive background and my mom's house here. She's big on Christmas holiday. Uh, Out of schedule here, obviously because it's the holidays, but there's a lot going on the holiday. So here we are, Armchair CMOs. Jules, what's up? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Jules.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We are almost at 2025, which is unbelievable. But there is so much going on. Like normally this is the time of the year where, everything's quiet and not much is happening, but there is so much happening. Including on Christmas Day, which is why we're recording like out of order.
Yes. So let's get started. Obviously, we talked about on the show in a previous episode about Netflix taking over or trying to impose on the NBA's stranglehold on Christmas Day in terms of a sports entertainment standpoint. So for those of you who need a quick recap, there was five NBA games, two NFL games. NFL games are on Netflix for the first time on Christmas, which was a big deal. Also featured halftime performance from the Queen Beyonce, which is a huge deal. So we're going to talk about all that. First off, let's just talk numbers. Jules,
Yeah.
hit us
We'll
with
start.
the numbers.
Start with some numbers. Yeah, okay. So NBA Christmas, for reference, hit a last year hit a record low viewership on Christmas Day games. Of 2.85 million people. So 2.85 million on average of last year's Christmas games. That was like an all-time low for NBA Christmas. This year, the average viewership was 5.25 million. So it's like almost double. Um, or is that double? I don't know. Math is hard, but no, it's almost double. It's not quite double. Um, but that's still like a huge increase from last year. And Lakers versus Warriors game, which was like kind of the primetime game too, being on at 8, averaged 7.76 million viewers and peaked at 8.32 million viewers. So this was the most watched NBA Christmas in 5 years. So definitely from a numbers perspective, a lot of success for the NBA here.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to note, like, contextually, right? Like, when we say it's the highest in 5 years, 5 years also includes a pandemic and an after pandemic shortened season. So, like, that skews the numbers a little bit. But I think it's important to this overall big picture conversation that's been had over the past couple of weeks about ratings and the fandom in the league. And this is just a big uh showcase that it's actually people are still paying attention. It may be down overall, but this is the biggest day that people pay attention to NBA basketball. I want to give a shout out to Bill Simmons for this idea and this concept, but the Warriors Lakers game being the peak game, being the primetime game, actually does kind of showcase the problem that the NBA has. It's like gift and a curse, like because that game is the game that you showcase and you put in the spot, but it's also the game that you're not highlighting any of your new stars. So
Yep.
for me, in my perspective, because I always like to have, I think I love that we have these conversations from a perspective of like we're giving our input as people who work in sports and marketing, but also people who are fans of sports in the game. So like this is the only game I watched. I again have said on the show before, I'm an NBA guy. NBA on Christmas Day is a huge part of my life overall in the history of my 38 years. But this was the only game I watched, partially because of the NFL being sprinkled in and just the way that things happen this day or throughout the day. But overall, it's good to see that the ratings were up better than last year. But I think as we get into this conversation about the comparison with the NFL being competing with them, I think that's also the plus to take away is like the ratings were up better than they were in the past 5 years, even with the introduction of
Competing.
the NFL games to try to.
Yeah. I do want to touch on what you just said about like you're highlighting the guys who've kind of held the mantle of the NBA for like 15 years now, if not more, being like Steph and LeBron. Um, I watched the NBA OG's interview.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know exactly who did it because it was released on a few different like YouTube channels, like ESPN put it out, NBA put it out. So I don't know like who did it, but it was an interview of Steph, KD, and Braun
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the Olympics. Um, which like I thought was great. I separate conversation, but I feel like they could have done so much more with that and like made so much money off of that if they like decided to. Um, but anyway, that was interesting, and they were talking a little bit about like you're like your guys are kind of like talking about retiring someday, like it's gonna be soon, even if not like next year. Like who's gonna kind of take over, like who's gonna be like the lead guys, like the sellable guys. And to your point, the most watched game and like maybe the best game of the NBA so far this year was still Steph and LeBron.
Yeah.
Um, so I do worry about that. Like they always have a battle. It's always a good game. It's always highly watched, but like what's the NBA gonna do when they're not around anymore?
Yeah. And another point, right? Like just overall, the again, happy that the ratings were up on Christmas Day higher than they were in the past 5 years, but also you feel like NFL aside, the spectacle of the Christmas Day was down a little bit, right? Like we saw a lot of conversation about not having NBA uniforms, like specific, which is a big deal, right? Like that's you want to see them, what the uniforms look like on Christmas Day. Like everyone's got these special uniforms, and like people are debuting sneakers usually on Christmas Day, and also selling new uniforms or like special Christmas jerseys like is a moneymaker. So
Yeah,
it felt like overall big picture, you know maybe that has to do something to the point that we made earlier is the fact that they spent so much energy 2 weeks ago because of the cup, right? Like Christmas is still important, but like they're having to be creative or they're having to pick their spots and make some decisions so that they can't go all in like they used to for some reasons. And I don't know. I just felt like again, watching the Lakers game, LeBron and stuff, but overall it just felt like
that's a great point though. Wouldn't it be cool if they did cup uniforms? Like because you know how they do the cup courts.
right,
It'd be cool if they did. Actually prefer, I think, cup uniforms to the cup courts. A, because the courts were ugly.
right.
But like, I mean, I think it's cool to kind of like mark different occasions with different uniforms. I feel like
And
that would have been cool.
I don't know the specifics, but I also feel like the city edition uniforms are supposed to be some type. I think they're coordinated with the cup games or the court. I don't know. I don't know the details of that.
Um,
I feel like the again, I think that's just a bigger picture thing that you see without even ever being told this specifically. Like the cup has kind of taken some of the focus over the other big tentpole things that the NBA has historically stood on throughout the year.
that's a good point.
So we talked about the old guys still dominating, and let's also like flip the script completely. Um, the young guys, specifically the youngest of the big stars, Wemby for the Spurs, was featured in a game against the Knicks to start the Christmas Day games. But it was unique because they did this really cool animated Disney cast. So I didn't watch the whole thing. Like I watched part of it, but I thought it was a really cool idea. Just the way that they won, I think because it was owned, and I think they had some sponsoring activations with throughout it. I think there was no commercials, and so they use it as a platform to kind of teach the game to younger kids. I wish I had watched it with a younger kid to see if it actually worked. I appreciated it from a marketing and from a, event, production standpoint in terms of being able to have, instead of having a commercial break, you have a video where, the one that I saw was a video of them explaining the different positions that are on the court. So this is the center position that's usually for tall people and they usually rebound and blah, 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 which I thought was like, if I'm a big NBA fan and I got a kid that's maybe ages 4 to 8, maybe they got it. But other than that, I feel like, the kids are, I feel like it's just like you hope that a kid would watch it, but also like that kind of thing makes me think that it's something that is just allowing the parent to put something on that the kid thinks is for them, but it's really for the parent. And they're just like hoping that that allows them to like let the parent enjoy the game
Yeah. I mean,
while they're learning about it.
yeah, I feel like it's smart from a few angles. Like it's hopefully developing young fans into people who are like gonna buy tickets in 20 years, but it's also like you said, like it probably helps with ratings and that kind of thing, with parents being able to potentially watch without the kids whining too much about it.
Right. And so it was cool. I mean, I thought like the quality, like for the I think I maybe watched like a half a quarter. Like, and it was like I'm sure the technology had it maybe a little bit delayed so it could be synced up as close as possible, but it was like I was watching a real game. Like commentary was matched. Got to shout out our a friend of the program, sort of. She doesn't even know the program exists. Maybe she does. But Monica McNutt is a Georgetown alum.
Oh.
Uh, Monica was calling the game with a guy named Drew Carter, but it was really cool to just to hear, especially because we know Monica, and Monica is someone who was like very knowledgeable of the game. For her to be able to be speaking to the game and be speaking to it in a way that was able to be digested by a younger fan, it was really cool, and I'm glad that she got that opportunity. So shout out to Monica. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see where they go with it. I mean, I think, like you said, the old guys being at prime time, I think it made sense for somebody like Wemby, who's got that cachet among the younger generation. It made perfect sense for him to be the person or be part of that game that started the day off with the Disney cast.
I also think it makes a lot of sense to have the Disney cast be at noon. Because it's like kids wake up so early, they do Christmas so early, and by noon on Christmas, they're done. Like they're so like they're probably looking for entertainment. So just from like a scheduling standpoint, I think that makes sense too.
Uh-huh. All right, let's switch
Um,
gears. Let's switch gears to the other sport that played. Like, yeah, okay. I'll let you take this one because you actually were at the game, one of the
I
games.
was at I was at one of the games, yeah. So NFL had Christmas games this year, which, like you mentioned earlier, we've talked about a little bit. We've talked about these a little bit in other episodes. NFL hasn't always had Christmas games. They do sometimes. They definitely do if it falls on like a normal Thursday or Sunday game day. Um, but this year they like very clearly were just trying to compete with NBA on Christmas because it was a Wednesday. So they don't normally play. It was a new partnership with Netflix, which is clearly part of like this ongoing initiative from Netflix to get into live events. Um, so we'll talk numbers first. Um, game day, NFL game day reached a record-breaking 65 million viewers like total. Um, which someone mentioned that one advantage of Netflix, which honestly this could be a part of NFL's strategy in partnering with Netflix, is that it tapped into Netflix's international audience.
Mhm.
Like Netflix, I think has something close to 300 million subscribers worldwide. So it's not just within the United States. And if you know, like the NFL has been scheduling games in the UK and in Mexico and in Canada, um, to try to and like Brazil this year to try to expand into international audiences. Like this clearly helps along those lines. In terms of like ratings, it peaked at 27 million during Beyonce's halftime show, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think we all expected that one. Um, and on average, oh, I don't have the average. Oh, I don't have the average ratings. Um, but I will, in the meantime, just give you for reference, the Super Bowl last year averaged 123 million viewers, 124 million viewers. Um, So that 27 million is like kind of still peanuts compared to like what the NFL can do. But 27 million is obviously like nothing to laugh at. The average NFL game, I think, does like 10 to 12 million. So they're still doing like good numbers. I'm gonna see if I can find.
Average for the two games is 24.2.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So yeah, they still doubled like their average numbers, average game day numbers. Um, so that's definitely like a huge success for NFL too. Um, And with 7 games between the NBA and NFL, like both had strong numbers. Um, okay, I want to shift a little bit and talk about like Netflix specifically because we kind of teased this or previewed this after the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, where there was a lot of complaints about buffering and a lot of concerns about what would happen on NFL game day, and especially for the Beyonce halftime. So a lot of people were paying attention to how Netflix was preparing for this game and whether they would be prepared. Um, and on Christmas Eve, they actually released ads making fun of themselves. So it was a Beyonce ad, like it was a Beyonce video that where she started playing the banjo, and then a few seconds in, it froze and started buffering. And it felt really natural. Like I saw a lot of comments on these videos that were like, "Oh, I for real thought this was just like my phone or my computer," but it was very clearly like them kind of poking fun at themselves for those buffering issues. And I had this thought of, okay, well, they better be ready now because if they're poking fun at themselves like this and like they're addressing head on these issues, they better be ready. Like to me, it was almost a statement of like, yes, we fixed the issues, we're ready for Christmas. But then I had this second thought of like, okay, they better be ready.
Right.
Um, and then just like a second part of like Netflix kind of addressing these issues head on was they put in their X header, roasted by Beyonce 12/24/24. Because it's like it felt like it was Beyonce roasting them, not Netflix. There was like clearly a Netflix produced ad. All of that I felt like was genius. It was bold. So that's why it was followed up by that. They better be actually be ready. Um, and all of that, like all of that happens and we come to find out they like maybe weren't actually ready. I don't know how your broadcast was because I was like at the first game, so I wasn't like sitting there at home watching on TV. But I saw a lot of complaints that there was either like buffering or really poor quality coming through. Um, from what I'm seeing, it wasn't a perfect experience for a lot of fans.
Wow. I did not see that. My experience was, I mean, other than my older family members at the table who did not understand that when Beyonce comes on, it's time to be quiet.
Because to pay attention.
Um,
Okay. So
yeah,
definitely some fans had a good experience.
yeah, it was fine. I had no issues. I mean,
I
like
I had some issues, but I was in the car driving home from Pittsburgh.
you could have been in the
So
middle of nowhere. Could have been a dead
yeah.
spot.
So
Yeah,
I can't say for sure whether it was Netflix or like just my service.
yeah. I mean, I thought like, just to keep talking about Beyonce, right? Like one, like first of all, just to give a setup, I'm sitting at the table that we sat at right now. Um,
Wait, are we talking about Beyonce yet, or do we not want to go there yet?
talking about I'm setting the scene for everyone.
Okay.
So there's a dining room in this other room, and I'm sitting in the living room where there's a card table that's in front of the TV. And so once we realized that it wasn't as many people as we thought were going to be here, I made the executive decision that we were going to sit in here in front of the TV. Like I'm not, no, like Beyonce's coming and we got to watch this. Like obviously because I'm a fan, but obviously I have this podcast, so I need to talk about it, right? But also, like I really want to see it, and it was amazing. But I think just she had a Super Bowl performance on a Christmas Day regular season game. Like special guests, they had to request for extra time. Like
Yeah.
was high level, high quality, like stuff that you only see at the Super Bowl that we saw on a random Wednesday football game in December.
It really
Yeah.
was. Like I was screaming in the car and my mom was just like A, my mom was driving so she couldn't watch, but B, she's like doesn't necessarily get as excited about this type of stuff as I do. And I was like, this is way above and beyond expectations. Amazing along so many different margins. Like really, she blew it away. And to your point, like NFL is almost disrupting themselves by having like this quality of a performance not on the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like Kendrick has a lot to live up to now
100%. 100%.
in like 6 weeks. Um, and then like here's what I was wondering. Um, like how much A, who paid for this? B, how much did they spend on it? And then like C, like clearly it was really beneficial for Netflix and for the NFL because there was like so much viewership. Um, But like, why did Beyonce agree to this? Like, did she get paid? Did she just want to remind everyone that she is in fact the queen? Everyone really thought that there was like an announcement coming, um,
Yeah.
which maybe there still is, but it didn't come like during the performance.
Yeah. So there was
Um,
so I didn't without going to doing too much research on it. I don't know who paid for that or if
yeah, that's what I'm so curious about though, because that had to be an expensive production.
but the cultural significance of it for Beyonce. One, they didn't make an announcement, but they did have something that they posted this date, this mysterious date of 1/14/25.
Oh, I missed that completely. Beyonce's team did.
Yes. I don't
Oh
remember
my
what
God.
I first saw it from somebody else posting it, but it's speculation of it's going to be either announcement of the third act or if it's going to be a tour. I think it's probably going to be a tour.
I
Uh,
think it's gonna be a tour, but.
But then the other part of it is the significance of the fact that she was kind of snubbed by the CMAs, or like just the whole concept of
Yeah. Okay, so but
president.
that's not a thing
Yeah.
because it's somebody I saw I followed all the like Demois type accounts that are like sneaky back alley, like, oh, she had the same nails this day as this ad, so this ad was taken in whatever. But Beyonce's hair from the halftime like announcement promo video was the same hair she had in August. So they knew they've been doing this since August. So it wasn't like directly a CMA snub response, to be fair.
But I mean, yeah, I get it, but I feel like
I mean, I think that's like what it, I mean, maybe that's why she went so hard.
right,
She had to remind everyone who she was, but
right. But I mean, okay, let's take that point out in terms of it being it's still part of the purpose. It fits the purpose of what the album is about. The album is about like
true. That's so true.
expressing the statement of country music is black music, and now she's shown that to everyone on the biggest stage in the world, and that's cool. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, she accomplished a lot. So, regardless of like whether she got paid or got out of it what she needed, like clearly everybody, well, whatever. I won't even say that. I think everybody got something out of this, the NFL, Netflix, and Beyonce. The part that I'm so curious about is like who was in these rooms, either at Netflix or at the NFL, saying like, let's have a Beyonce halftime show. Let's be willing to spend millions of dollars on it. Like I'm so curious the discussions behind that because it worked in terms of viewership, but like I do think they almost might have caused a problem for themselves now with like the Super Bowl halftime show has to live up to that.
yeah, I don't see any answer to the question of how much you got paid. I see like
She may she may
the
not have. Don't you not get paid to perform in the Super Bowl? I don't know.
three project deal signed by the singer. So, though there are not, this is from Yahoo Entertainment. Though there are no specific numbers for the performance, we know it was produced by Beyonce's Parkwood Entertainment and Jesse Collins Entertainment, and is reportedly part of a $60 million three-project deal she signed between the singer and streaming service way back in 2019. So that's a
So it
that's
was
a
a
good
Netflix
point of,
deal.
yeah. So, but if it's since 2019, that's also already included the Homecoming documentary from when she was at Coachella.
Okay.
Um, so maybe this is the second thing in it. We'll see.
Maybe if she's touring for Cowboy Carter, maybe that will be the third part.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, the one other thing I want to talk about here was just because we have to, because we are a sports podcast, um, is the reaction of the sports world to the halftime show. Before it even happened, I think it was so funny that Lamar Jackson was joking about like sneaking out of halftime to go watch. And then I saw a cool cartoon of like him watching in the back on a TV or something. Him and CJ Stroud like watching in the locker room or something. And then Harbaugh after the game joked, like I did check that Lamar Jackson stayed in the locker room during halftime. Like I was scared he snuck out. So I thought that was like a fun little side narrative that was happening. Also like legends like Dawn Staley, Coco Gauff, and Serena Williams all reacted on social media and like had praise for the queen, which I think rightly so. But it was just like cool to see the sports world react.
it was a big deal. It was a big
Yep.
deal. And it was like really good. Like as much as I talk about being a Beyonce fan, like I'm not like super diehard. And I probably listened to this Cowboy album like twice since it came out. But I know the songs because my wife listens to them. But at the same time, like just the way that it was done, it was very, very well done. I appreciate a good show.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan where like I'm gonna lose my mind over everything Beyonce does. Like she earned me losing my mind over this one.
Yeah,
Like I didn't go to Renaissance tour. Like I'm I feel about Beyonce and Drake kind of the same way. Like I like them and I like their music and I'll listen to their music, but I'm not gonna like die to go to their tour. Like they're just not my like number one artists.
I mean, that's a conversation for another podcast.
Different podcast. Okay. The one other thing I want to talk about before we move on, It's just like a little bit more Netflix promo because this is still a relatively new thing, and like Netflix is still kind of fighting for space in like the live sports world and fighting for like respect in the live sports world. Like a lot of people were kind of after some of the buffering issues after um Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and then after like some of the buffering issues that apparently happened, which maybe it wasn't Netflix, maybe it was just like people's Wi-Fi for the NFL games on Wednesday. There's some people calling, like they're like, all right, Netflix, this is it, like end the experiment, like you're done. um, but I wanted to note some other good marketing that I thought they did. We've seen all those team videos that they release of asking the players questions on the way to or from practice or in the locker room or whatever. And Netflix did a video with the Steelers players asking them which Netflix show they'd be a star in if they could. Which is like a simple, quick little video, but I think that was smart. It was just like more promo from them, both for like their shows that they have on their service, and like to promo the game. Um, and then the other thing that I want to say is it was announced like within the last week or two, maybe even just like the last couple days, that Netflix is going to be doing more sports. They did just sign exclusive broadcast rights for the 2027 and 2031 Women's World Cup. So they are not going anywhere soon in the sports world. They are like really doubling down because that's exclusive broadcast rights. So that means that like the only way you're going to be able to watch the Women's World Cup is going to be through Netflix. So
And they've got some, I've
it's
seen some promo for WWE stuff that they've got too that's coming. Like I think they even had one of the WWE women superstars was on the sideline at one of the games, and they interviewed her about coming to Netflix or something like that. So, I mean, I think as much as we talk about big picture, everyone's talking about ratings and fandom and all the broadcast rights and all these different moving parts of, NBA going, leaving TNT and come back to NBC and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's always going to be value in it because no matter what, sports is still the most valuable product because it's still unscripted, it's still unpredictable. You have no idea, and it's still such a cultural moment, especially when you talk about the games in the playoffs and Super Bowl and that kind of thing. So, college football playoff, all that. So this it's the final frontier, low key. Like all these other things that t there's so much TV, there's so many different shows. Like everyone can
yeah,
always be oversaturated with too many shows, but the sports is always going to be unique
new.
and have
Yeah,
time, like have people be interested in seeing it and what it looks like.
yeah. All right. So the last thing we have to talk about, if we're talking about Christmas, um, we would be crazy to talk about NFL and NBA on Christmas and not talk about the larger conversation of kind of like who won Christmas. Historically, like NBA has had Christmas games forever. NFL seems like they're kind of trying to infringe on NBA Christmas. And LeBron, addressed this directly after that. I mean, that game was amazing. Wednesday night, the Lakers Warriors game, came down to an Austin Reeves layup, which is maybe not the most cinematic way to end that game, but there was like a last second basket that decided it. In LeBron's post game interview, he said, "I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day." So what do you think, Ron? Do you think Christmas is the NBA's or the NFL's?
So, so we have the sample size of one Christmas to go off of. So let's just take it with that. Like let's not speculate. Let's not try to forecast. Like the reality of what happened on Wednesday is, and LeBron James is my guy. And when he came out and said that, like I loved it because I love when like as LeBron has gotten older and his level of caring about anything, he just says what he wants. Whether he's right or wrong, I just appreciate his candidness whenever he gives it to us. And this was a peak candid LeBron moment after a win. Like Anthony Davis didn't play most of the game. They had a bunch of injuries. It came down to LeBron making a shot and then Steph Curry doing what Steph Curry does, is like we talked about earlier, having these two aging superstars, but still give us the best game of the day. Uh, the best game of the day out of all 7 games. Let's be really clear,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah.
This was the best game of the day out of all 7 games, NBA or NFL, because the Pittsburgh game, I watched it because it was the first one, like, gotta watch it. Like, like I said earlier, I sprinkled in a little bit of the Disney cast just for the sake of the conversation and because I was interested in it. But then I turned on the Steelers game just to see how the first Netflix game went. Cool. But I wasn't really paying attention because it was a blowout for most of the game. Second game was a blowout too, right?
Hey, it was not a blowout until the fourth quarter.
Okay, I
I
apologize.
have to defend my Steelers.
I ain't I root for the Steelers. That was my dad's favorite team, and Russell Wilson's from Richmond, so like that's my guy. But the Ravens game was like a big time blowout. And as soon as Beyonce was done,
Yeah.
I maybe gave it the half of the third quarter, and I like looked at the score of the Sixers and the Celtics. So I was like, I'm changing the channel. Didn't even
Yeah.
like, and this is part of me being old and being like, I really don't even. I'm just kind of I can't think of the right word, but I didn't ask any questions.
Stuck in your ways.
Not even stuck in my ways, but there's eight other people at the table. I didn't even ask if anyone cared. I'm sitting at
Oh.
the table. I'm the only one that's facing the TV. Beyonce performed. Lamar Jackson like scored two more touchdowns. I checked the score. It was tied at the end of the third quarter between the Celtics and the Sixers. Like I'm changing the channel, and
Yeah.
no one even noticed. So to answer your question, right? Like big picture, the numbers are gonna say that the NFL won because they have more people watching these games, but the
But
games
the
longer.
numbers,
One of them had
sorry,
Beyonce, right? The games are longer. One of them had Beyonce. The novelty of it being on Netflix for the first time, like there were just a lot of things that were going in their
there's so
favor.
many.
People
Yeah.
that at
If
least
all
tuned in.
if all you care about is the numbers, then like, well, if all you care about is like the raw volume of the numbers, then yeah, the NFL won. If you're looking at like relative,
Right.
like NFL game versus average, NBA game versus average, then I don't know who won because the NBA had the best Christmas Day showing in 5 years. Like they still had strong numbers for the NBA. Like you're comparing apples to oranges. You can't really compare the numbers apples to apples. And like you were saying, like there's so many other things going on. Like the NFL is like right before playoffs. Like these games are a little bit more consequential. Like this timing of the season like matters a little bit more in the NFL. Whereas in the NBA, it's still like the beginning of the season and there's just like way fewer, or at least like middle of the season, there's like way fewer NFL games overall. So like more people tune in on average because there's just like so many NBA games. Um, so I don't know that you can say I don't know that you can compare numbers like that. That's my point.
I don't know.
To your point.
I think it's hard to say pick a winner, but I feel like the NBA showing was strong and the NFL had Beyonce. So like you take that conversation with a grain of salt. Like there's a bunch of people who are tuning in. Say like that's the point of it. That's why you have Beyonce at halftime of the game. But
Honestly, if I had to pick winners, I would actually say Netflix, Beyonce, and the NBA. I wouldn't actually list the NFL as a winner.
right,
The games were bad. Like the games are not good. You know, like I don't feel like people cared. Beyonce was the biggest draw. Netflix, you know, like made really kind of established themselves in a space, like probably made a lot of money off this. Um, and then the NBA, like people have been complaining about NBA ratings all year and the quality of the games and whatever. We had great games, good ratings. So I don't know that you can say that the NBA lost it anyway. The only person I would say had the only entity I would say like I didn't actually get a ton out of this was the NFL.
yeah. I mean, it's also
I
right.
think.
Like you gotta. We also talk about the difference in the leagues, right? Like the NFL is a team league. Like the players that you people love, they're cool, but like if their teams don't play or they don't have good teams, like you don't get to see them be have success and you don't care about them, right? So like
You
you
know,
the Chiefs, like I think a lot of people have Chiefs fatigue, to be honest, right?
yes, I was just gonna say, like people hate the Chiefs. Like the NFL lost because the Chiefs like maintained their dominance and nobody wants to see that.
Right. Like Patrick Mahomes is not a big enough, like he's not a lovable enough guy, like to carry
No.
that. So people weren't tuning in to see the best team in the league who may have a three-peat, right? Like they're just tuning in because it's the first time that NFL is playing on Christmas and it's on Netflix. So like let's check it out. But and then the second game, like Lamar Jackson might win the MVP again. And I like he had a great game, but it was also just like
And also,
again. still having old ass LeBron and Steph both on teams who are ranked like seventh and eighth in the West
Yeah.
have the most exciting and entertaining game. It is what it
Who
is.
ended up who ended up winning Celtics Sixers?
The Sixers like actually pulled away at the end.
Okay, so I don't know that we can even say the NBA won. I would say that maybe they won a little bit or something, but it wasn't as big of a win as for Beyonce or Netflix. Beyonce won Christmas Day. That's all we need to know. Um, but I saw a lot of people kind of like saying, like Jason Tatum was on the verge of becoming kind of the next like face of the NBA, as was I think Giannis at one point. Like both after their teams won the championships, they could have the next season had their team been good again, kind of like maintained this momentum to really become kind of like the young face. But both teams are like not necessarily like the Celtics are still good this year, obviously, but like they couldn't win in a big game and they couldn't show up in a big game the way LeBron and Steph could.
I mean, it's
Like
also
they put on a show, and then like from what I heard, I didn't watch, but from what I heard, the Celtics Sixers game like wasn't as good
it's
as people were
competitive
hoping.
until the third quarter. It's competitive until the third quarter, but then it was like, I think, I mean, those guys just aren't LeBron and Steph. They just aren't.
Or, but they
They're
but they need to be like, or the NBA needs them to be
mm,
like. I personally like Giannis and Jason Tatum both, and I'm kind of rooting for them. And like, if the game is on, I don't really have an NBA team, so as long as they're not playing somebody I like more, like I'll be rooting for the Bucks or the Celtics. Um, and so for like both of them to have an opportunity to kind of like go like run away with, the fame and the recognition and like neither of them really doing it, it's kind of disappointing.
yeah. The NBA's got a star problem that they got to fix, but ultimately, on a very important Christmas day where they had to fight the NFL, the old stars showed up, and there you go.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like I think America won. We got a lot of sports, we got a lot of entertainment. Like we got a lot of good stuff to come out of Christmas Day. I mean, I don't know. Like my Steelers lost in a stupid game. I was kind of in a bad mood because I'm an old lady and I have problems. So I was just kind of like in pain. But then I got in the car and watched Beyonce, and that immediately turned my mood around. I got home and I watched Lakers Warriors, and that game was incredible. So by the end of the day, I was like, yeah, today was awesome. But that's my point. Like we won as sports fans. Uh,
Power of
so
sports. Power of sports.
you know, no kidding. Um, your mom, I want to hear from your mom about what she thought about Beyonce, because you said she's a big Beyonce girl, right?
I mean, she's a fan. She's not big. Like, she's she's not into it enough to give any relevant commentary.
For real conversation.
Uh, Kia is though. Kia was impressed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, me and Kia were like locked in, and me and her
Yeah.
were side conversations about like different moments that were happening. Oh, did you see that? And it's like, oh, is that Shabuzi? Oh, is that Post Malone coming out? Oh, Post like, and it was just me and her in our own world watching it while these old people were. Let me not say
Yeah.
our older family members were
Your
like
elders.
asking questions or who is that? And I was like, oh,
I know. I was like narrating to my mom, and I don't even think she got it. I was like, "Mom, Shabuzi's there," and she's like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, she's dancing with Blue Ivy. That's so cute." And she's like, "Who's Blue Ivy?" And I'm like, "Okay, never mind."
so overall, Christmas Day, I think
Hmm.
it still belongs to the NBA. I'll agree with LeBron, but I mean, we'll assume, right? Like we'll assume that Netflix is in NFL, or at least either or both of them together are going to try to do this thing again next year, and it'll be interesting to see what happens because I seriously, I'm not going to say doubt it, but there's a chance that like LeBron won't be able to save them next year. Like
Yeah.
if he's even in the league, like what can we expect from about to be 41-year-old LeBron in a year? I mean, you never know. But let's see how the rest of the year goes. I'm excited about it, but overall, thank you to the NFL, thank you to to Netflix, thank you to Beyonce, thank you LeBron, thank you Steph, um, thank you Blue Ivy Carter and Jay-Z and whatever.
Don't think Jay-Z. What did he do? Real question. What did he do?
He's the connection between he's the connection to the NFL.
What do you mean?
You know, he's the one that organizes the music for a Super Bowl. Like they're like involved in the
No, isn't that Apple?
brokered
The
by.
last few years, the last few years it's been the Apple Music halftime.
Yeah, but he's involved in the process of choosing who does it.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Also, do they still have Tidal? Does that still exist?
Title does exist. Yeah.
Why aren't they making the Tidal Music halftime show?
He doesn't, I don't think he owns title anymore.
Oh God, I'm so far behind. Okay.
All right, Junior. Well, hope you had a good Christmas and hope you have a happy New Year.
You too.
I mean, we got nothing else big coming up. I mean, bowl games. CFP's not again until next week, so we'll catch each other in in the new year. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see when we have stuff to talk about again.
Cool. All right,
All
Junior.
right.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.